third Monday together, and it is a fat 0-3. I think last night was the worst of the three. How are you?
Man,
winner?
what
was that?
Yeah, last night was rough, man. Yesterday was a tough one. That was a tough one because I love the way the game started. I felt like 49ers were engaged, but man, after the 65-yard run by Cook, it just felt like the run D just evaporated. Like the effort wasn't there. The energy wasn't there. They just didn't have the juice. At the beginning of the game, they looked like they were going to be able to stop the run, and then it's just starting with that long run. They really didn't stop the run at that point. And very frustrating game, and it leaves you this morning kind of questioning everything, every aspect of this thing. Are the 49ers on the right page? Are they going in the right direction? Do they need to make changes? I think there's no doubt they need to make changes, but a lot of people want to make coaching changes and GM changes and quarterback changes. I'm not there yet. I'm really not. I just think that Bill Belichick said it best last week, where he said, hey, when you're not on top, I think it was Inside the NFL, he said, like, when you're not on top, it seems like you're miles from there. And when you're on top, it sometimes feels like nobody will ever knock us off our perch. So that's just kind of the nature of the way it feels in the NFL. But look at Philadelphia. Last year they were there. They went into their offseason needing all kinds of backfighting, finger pointing. They lost their captain, the center Kelsey. They needed to replace both coordinators. They had their pass D was an absolute sieve. And here they are right now. And if I was sitting in a casino right now, I'd bet the Eagles to win the NFC. I love the way they look right now.
Over the Lions, huh?
Yeah, I love the way Philly looks.
Yeah.
Philly looks really, really good. They got a big, gigantic offensive line. They got a tremendous back. And they wear teams down. I watched them against the Commanders a couple weeks ago, just wear down the Commanders in the second half of the game, and they've done it the last couple weeks as well. So getting a win in Baltimore, as you know, Greg, that is one of the hardest places to win in the entire league.
So that James Cook run, let's break it down because I think it was the game. McCaffrey just giving himself up going out of the game. Jake makes the field goal and then the first play. And Buffalo ran more jumbo last night than they have, and they run more jumbo than any team in football. They bring in the Alec Anderson, the third-year lineman from UCLA, who plays center for them, but they bring him a tackle. Anyway, they ran right behind him. So one of the major injuries last night, and going back to the Green Bay game when Bo Melton ran into his knee, they had a collision there, is Diamador Lenore missing the game with a deep bone bruise in his left knee. So he may be out more than just one game. So how do the Niners, compensate for the loss of Diamador Lenore? I know you were on it throughout the week, and we saw it. What they did was they played at the outside corners and on first and second down, Charvarius Ward and Renardo Green. And then in the nickel, they put Nick McLeod, who is a new Niner. He never played a snap of defense before last night. He made 16 starts as a New York Giant. Talking to Daniel Bullocks, he did play mostly in the slot. They felt like he was a better, bigger, sturdier run player. So he was in on first and second down. On third down, when you thought they would pass, Renardo Green moved inside, Ike Yadam came in, and Nick McLeod went out. The reason I bring it up, go back, and I know you've seen it, and you'll watch it 10 more times on the All-22, the run fits of, in particular, Nick McLeod, number 35, and he's on the field to be able to make that tackle where he was. He missed the tackle. Jair Brown came down from safety, missed the tackle, and he's out the gate. No one can run him down. Fred Warner was off the field. All of a sudden, who's 41? Who's Jalen Graham was 50 before. Now he's 41, and he's trying to run with him down the sideline. Nobody catches him. Mustafa, it's a touchdown. If Diamador Lenore can't play, Larry, what do the 49ers do with that nickelback spot that plagued them last year?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is why Lenore is so special, because he's got the coverage ability of an outside corner, but he's got the hitting and tackling ability in the box of a linebacker, and that's why he's so valuable. And that's why, despite the fact that he himself is not the biggest body, he can play in the box, but Renardo cannot. He's a boundary guy because he's a much smaller guy. He doesn't have the same striking power. He might in a couple of years. He doesn't right now. So I think what you saw is what you're going to get. And I think they really, really like McLeod, by the way. I talked to him in the locker room this week, and, he feels like he's not just going to be here for a while, this year or a week or two. He feels like he's going to be here. So they like him. They like him as a special teamer. I think they like his physicality. He is much more physical in the box than a Bernardo Green would be. So I think you're going to see more of the same. I mean, they're limited in what they can do. I mean, they're down several bodies. You could make an argument you're down your best DB, your best D lineman, and one of the best linebackers in football in Greenlaw, and really down 2 once Fred went out. So they're just not the same team. I mean, you have the same uniforms, you have the same helmets, but that's not the same team that we saw on Super Bowl Sunday. Not even close.
We'll consider the conversation with Larry Krueger after I tell you that you're listening to KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. And Larry, we are absolutely not on a Monday here after a 35-10 game like that going to pretend like the 49ers are something that they're not. But I do think when you have a young quarterback, and yes, I still think Brock Purdy is the guy and he will get a contract extension this offseason. I think when you have the young quarterback, then it doesn't become a rebuild. It's more of a retool. I mean, heck, even the Bills retooled a little bit this offseason, and we saw what people were saying about them maybe taking a step back, and then we see what they are now. Your guy, Isaac Guerrero, got a nice little touchdown last night, and they do have a lot of young speed. Jordan Mason, Isaac Guerrero, maybe Jacob Cowing, Pearsall, guys that kind of flourish possibly up in the next season. So when you look at the possible bright spots in this rookie draft class, where are the areas that they need to retool, whether that be staff or whether that be personnel?
Well, I really believe strongly that the players win and the players lose, and so I do think they went for a first year coordinator. They probably needed a more experienced coordinator. Staley. Look at the Chargers defense with Staley, without Staley. With Jesse Minter running the show from Michigan. So I think they really do need to upgrade their coaching staff. I think they need to keep, I'll say it directly. I think they need to go re-sign Robert Saleh. Why? Because I think they need to keep Chris and Kasarik in that front. And I think Saleh, bringing him back, I think you would be able to retain Chris. So that's the big one. Do you want to move away from the wide 9? Do you want to go in a different direction with your front? I'm okay with that if you want to go in that direction, but I think for continuity purposes, if you could get Saleh to come back here, I think that's something I'd be interested in. But overall, I think it's about personnel. It's about players. They missed on 8 number ones. They depleted some of their depth in the pursuit of Javon Hargrave, and now they're down some bodies, and they really badly need an infusion of talent along that offensive line. I will say this. I was impressed by what Barch did yesterday. It was not a good day yesterday for Aaron Banks because Aaron Banks, a free agent at the end of the year, they haven't run particularly well. He got beat badly in Green Bay by Carl Brooks, in my opinion, and then he wasn't able to go in this game, and the Niners ran it more effectively without him than they did with him. So I think the odds of him getting a big contract from the 49ers seem like they probably went down yesterday, but they need more players. They were awesome a year ago with their skill position players. They're not those same guys this year. They were incredible last year at linebacker, maybe the best in football. They're not anywhere close to that right now. So to me, those are the areas that there's improvement that's needed across the board, and we can talk about any number of spots, but where have they really backslid? Their weapons from last year to this year and their linebacking core from last year to this year, night and day.
All right, the defense we've handled. Let's move over to the offense because the last 2 games, and the elements have been hard at Lambeau and certainly in Buffalo last night, but they scored 1 touchdown in each of those games. They have 25 touchdowns on the year. They were the highest scoring team. With Brock Purdy a quarterback, there was a stat early this year that just caught me, and I couldn't believe it. It went back to the merger of 1970. They expanded it out to 1950 later. With Brock Purdy a quarterback, the San Francisco 49ers, the highest scoring team in the history of the NFL. Higher than Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and Tom Brady and New England and Tampa, wherever he was, or Lamar, anybody. It's just not been that way lately. Now, he's missing a lot of pieces. But I can still hear when they advertise promo your show, What's the stat? When Brock Purdy does not turn the ball over, the Niners never lose. And when Brock Purdy turns the ball over, the Niners lose. The turnovers have not been that bad. He's got 8 on the year. He had the 3 against Kansas City and the loss to Arizona, which is laying there. But when you go into a cold weather game like last night, what I get concerned about, I came right when he went out to warm up. I'm like, does he have a glove on his left hand? Does he have one on his right hand? Josh Allen does put one on his left hand, although he injured his hand early in the year against Arizona. He's small, obviously at 6 feet, 5'8", 7 inch tall. He does not have big hands. And we've seen it where just on the pullback, Larry, the ball just comes out of his hand, whether it's cold and the ball's, like a rock, like a bocce ball here, a bowling ball in Buffalo, or, when it's wet. And, and he did say if he had to do it over again, he would have gone out and warmed up a little longer last night to get his arm ready to play in the elements. Just, I know a lot of pieces are around him, but how do you evaluate Brock Purdy this year versus last year and some of the turnovers he's committed, whether it's throwing picks or losing the grip on the ball?
Well, I mean, the grip on the ball is baffling, but we saw it last year in Cleveland in the wet weather. I mean, there was only a little bit of wetness in that game, and it was concentrated. And in that period, he struggled. He started, the ball sailed on him. He had a ball that he threw to Kittle that went 5 yards out of bounds. I mean, he really struggles with the wet football. I mean, I know he considered wearing a glove. He's talked about that. That's a problem. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, look at all the best teams in the NFC. I mean, outside of the ones that play indoors, I mean, there's some cold weather places. You're going to win the Super Bowl. Odds are you're going to have to go to a cold weather place and get it done. Maybe a Lambeau, maybe wherever it's going to be, Philadelphia. You're going to have to go out in the elements in January. You win Super Bowls in this league in December and January. That's what gets you in there. So that if that is a problem of him handling the football, then that's something that they're going to have to deal with going forward. You're not going to be able to grow his hand size. You're not going to be able to, do anything there. Maybe he could wear a glove. I think, quarterback's going to be a really interesting position because I believe that Brock is the guy. And yet, how do you structure the quarterback room around him as he gets paid more? And what's in the best interest of the franchise? I think it's probably in the best interest of the franchise to pay Brock, but I don't know if I want to pay him the $53 million that Tua Tagovailoa got from Miami. But he's probably been every bit as good as Tua, so he probably, Kyle Strongton, his agent, is probably going to ask for that. He's probably going to ask for $53 million a year. So did you want to pay him $53 million a year? And then what do you want the rest of that quarterback room to look like? This year it was veterans behind him, Allen and Dobbs. Next year, I would get rid of Allen and Dobbs and go with Tanner Mordecai and draft a couple guys for the relative inexpensive nature of their contracts as far as rookies, but also for the potential upside that maybe you could hit on a day 3 quarterback and parlay that into some kind of draft pick compensation with another team. So I don't know what they're going to do going forward, but that's how I'd go forward. I'd sign Brock, try to get him on a reasonable deal. If he won't agree to a reasonable deal, I think I'd play it out, and I would go with young quarterbacks behind him and see if I can keep, 8 of the last 21 quarterbacks, Greg, that won the Super Bowl, like 18 of them are either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. So I love Brock Purdy. I think he's really good. Is he a future Hall of Famer? I don't know. So maybe, you go with him, but you got to keep looking. You got to keep looking. You can't just get out of the quarterback searching business because you have Brock. And that's the way I would play it. I would sign him, but I would try to sign him at my price.
Few more minutes here with Larry Krueger, who joins us on the UMA guest line. And just to revisit the Robert Saleh discussion, Larry, before we let you go, the 49ers are going through the revolving door of defensive coordinators. And I'm not going to stand up here and say Nick Sorensen has done the most superb job. And yeah, there's been injuries, but there's also a lot of execution errors. And I think that falls on coaching, whether it be DC or Kyle Shanahan. Is there any chance that they keep Nick Sorensen if they can't get a trusted replacement near the top of their list like a Robert Saleh? I mean, the scapegoating Steve Wilkes was a thing last year. You lost D'Amico Ryans to go to the Texans. At some point, I just think if you keep cycling through DCs, unless you can get someone that is an established great defensive mind that's had success, I don't know if there's a big advantage to that.
I hear you. And these are all going to be very difficult decisions to make. I definitely think that you could probably go after a big name defensive coordinator and maybe retain Sorensen in some capacity if you wanted to. But I mean, the back-to-back 12 men on the field penalties, I mean, that's inexcusable. I mean, he blamed himself, but he should blame himself. He's the coordinator. And
by the way, the one last night was not 12 men on the field.
I know.
I didn't pick that up till I watched the NBC broadcast back. We didn't even know it in the stadium. That was erroneously reported. The Niners had 11 players on the field last night. Sorry, Larry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, last night's was not a 12 men on the field penalty, but they had 2 back-to-back the week prior.
Yeah.
And it's just they're just struggling in all phases of the game. I mean, I'm not seeing extraordinary effort, but I'm more seeing a worn-down defense. But the Niners are number 1 in the league in time of possession, so the offense is doing their part to try to possess the ball and try to carry this defense. They just lost an awful lot. I mean, when they lost Aziz and Ebukam, I thought they lost an awful lot up front. Then they lost Mosley and Jimmy Ward on the back end. They've replaced some of those back end players with some good young players, but they haven't replaced the guys up front. And so they've gone from like the best linebacking core in the game to one that's challenged. Let's just say that. So they need the one good bright spot from yesterday I thought was Evan Anderson, the young kid in the middle, is a player. He's really a player. He's a nice player. He's strong. He holds his feet. He plays the game on his feet. He doesn't go to the ground. He's a good football player at a very valuable position. So that was a nice find by Kasarik for sure as an undrafted guy. And obviously he pounded the table, said, hey, pay this guy. And they guaranteed him $280,000. That was money well spent. He's probably their only anchor point up front. The rest of their defensive tackles are kind of get moved around quite easily.
Larry, we appreciate your time as always, and good luck on Niners Nightly. I say this every Monday when we do this because I know the calls are going to come flooding in, the texts are going to come flooding in, and you're going to have to balance your passion and energy, which you bring better than just about anybody, but also with your knowledge of the game and being a little bit realistic here on a Monday.
Well, Greg, I appreciate that. We will, we do a lot of guests and try to, bring people to, get some information that they don't normally have. But like tonight, the day after the game, we're going to devote the entire hour to your phone calls. So feel free to air it out tonight at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Catch Larry Krueger for Niners Nightly on KNBR, the sports leader, 808 KNBR, the number to dial in for Larry or for us. Enjoying the conversation. Also, the same number for the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. Larry, have a great afternoon. We'll talk soon.
See you, Greg.